me in the muni, where the party at? Dog pound, turn up with the elf up on my starter cap. Brought him back, boy, we from the land and we proud of that. Louder man, front to the back, here we go, I got him shouting that. Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Here we go, brownies. Here we go, brownies. Here we go, brownies. Game on the line, Joe Thomas, I promise. Jim Brown running through opponents, how I got this. I return like Josh Cripps, paying for the mini, got the dog pound jumping. Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Here we go, brownies. Here we go, brownies. Stand up. Here we go, brownies. Let's go.
Cleveland, this is for you.
Mr. Hero's turning 60. We're proud to have served your favorite cravings for 60 years and celebrating what we do best. Thanks, Ohio.
I crave a hero.
Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the Here We Go Brownies podcast. I'm Allie Ellery, coming at you live from Pensacola, Florida. Joined with me, as always, we've got Dustin. Real quick, if you haven't already, please download the Mr. Hero app. You can get buy one, get one off. It's just for signing up. Build rewards points. You can order food. So please make sure to tell my friends over at Mr. Hero. Dustin, how are you?
Good. Live out here from Great Northern Mall in a snowy 13 inches. Allie, you don't want to be anywhere near this snow. It's I'm sure you've heard from your family how much snow they got, but snowy, but we're excited. Kirk Gibson will be doing signings literally right now. He's starting to do the two-time World Series champion Kirk Gibson from the Detroit Tigers, and of course the monumental moment when he was with the Los Angeles Dodgers with that famous home run that he had. So he's here signing until 8 o'clock. So stop by, come join us, or just come by and say hi. But I know it's cold, but if you want stuff signed, you can also just drop a comment, and we'll make sure we get you in the right hands.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I know everybody what we're here to talk about today, right? The Browns have made a new hire for their head coaching position. We're going to get to a lot of that. I just want to let you know that at about 15 after here, in about 12 or so minutes, we are going to bring on newly signed receiver Isaiah Wooden to the program. Excited to talk to him briefly, and then, of course, we are going to get into it. So for the in-depth coaching hire discussion, stay tuned until after that interview. Of course, we are going to bring David on as well, talk about just all things Browns. But just kind of surface level, real quick, the Browns do hire Todd Monken, who was previously the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. He was with Cleveland in 2019 as the offensive coordinator under Freddie Kitchens. That season was tough, to say the least. And then goes to Georgia, had some success there, goes to Baltimore, obviously, had great seasons there with Lamar Jackson and what they were doing offensively, and now comes to Cleveland. So
Right.
I think this process drug out and took so many turns that were unexpected and just very, very Cleveland, if you will. But at the end of the day, they make a hire, and I think that there are things here to be excited about. And I know that there are things probably that are disappointing to some of you. We'll talk about that. Just want to kind of preface by saying this discussion that we're going to have, we're going to try to do it as optimistically as possible. I don't want to come in with any negative stance. I did this. Guys, I remember having the show after the Browns announced the hire of Kevin Stefanski. And I had so many people in the comments just absolutely ripping it apart. It was nasty. Yep. We're not doing it. And I tried the same thing. I said, I'm going to try to take an optimistic approach. I want to talk about his offensive philosophy, how that fits the team. And, in the short term, it did work. He had some success in Cleveland. And we're going to take that same approach here with Todd Monken. Want to look at it as optimistically as possible and how we think this could work here in Cleveland with the personnel that we currently have and what this might mean for this upcoming offseason. So we're going to get to all that. I have some opinions, and really my opinions, Dustin, really lie with just the way this coaching search is handled, not necessarily where they ended up. And I'm happy to speak negatively on the search. I have no problem doing that, but I don't want to speak negatively on the hire, of course. But the search itself was so chaotic. It was, just in Cleveland Browns fan fashion, we're tracking flights from Knoxville to Cleveland to Los Angeles to Baltimore. And, the whole thing was insane. And it's clear that there was some maybe disconnect between Jimmy Haslam, Andrew Barry, and what they wanted to do and their philosophies. And frankly, this feels, now I have no evidence to back this up, so if it comes out later that I'm wrong, I'm happy to admit it. But this feels very Jimmy Haslam to me. If I had to put money on it, I would say Andrew Barry was probably wanting to go in the direction of, at the time, Greg Udinsky or Nathan Shieldhouse, the young incoming minds. And this, to me, feels more Jimmy. And I have no evidence to back that up. It just feels that way. Obviously, it comes from two different offensive philosophies and what these guys want to do. So I'm curious to get your thought on the process and what kind of where it ended up.
Yeah, I was driving around today, and I will say this, Allie. I got reaction on the street, like just people yelling, calling this a bleepity bleep hire. And so I will tell you this. I feel like we have like the Stockholm kind of feeling sometimes in Cleveland. Like we are waiting for the worst thing to happen, if that makes sense. And we just can't get out of the way of ourselves. I mean, just go on to Brown's Twitter and I don't, you'll thank me or hate me, when you're done going into that. And I guess where I'm at on this, and we'll back up a little bit, the hiring process, I think, was not troubled, but I think the hiring process, when you look and you pull back, and I try to look at this from somewhat of a different lens, but if you look in my lifetime, there has not been 10 head coaching jobs open in the National Football League and 2 prominent, Mike Tomlin and Harbaugh. I feel like this got 6 different ways for the Cleveland Browns based on there were many people trying to hire jobs and assistant coaches, that this turned into a mess for every coaching staff, unless you're the Atlanta Falcons, you hire a guy and then you're starting to just build immediately. I think with 10 head coaches in the NFL and assistants, withdrawing in, I'm out. Like, I think this all had to do with how many coaches were hired or let go in this go around. A third of the league said goodbye to their head coaches. And you know what that does? I mean, that's 60, 70 staff members that are now all over the place jockeying, right? And you have agents involved, right? So I think because of this, I'm not mad at the Browns for letting this drag out and being thorough about it, because at the end of the day, if this ends up being the right hire, and I will go on the record that I think we need to pump the brakes and see what his staff looks like over the next 3 to 4 days, then we can judge it. I mean, based on the offensive line coach that he just hired to join this staff, Joe Thomas has already spoke out vocally that he's great. He'll be a great person to run the offensive line. Let's just give it, let's just pause the brakes to yours. Let's be a little positive about this. And by the way, if we're Browns fans, we want him to succeed. We don't want him to fail. We want him to succeed.
Yeah, I hope he's the guy. And, I know a lot of people are saying, well, they went with the old guy. I mean, that would have been the case for Jim Schwartz or Todd Monken. And you know what? If I saw this tweet earlier, I forget who tweeted it to give them credit, but they said something along the lines of, hey, if his age becomes a problem, that means something worked out. And he was the coach here for a very long time, right? I don't think
Fair.
That's a fair assessment. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that there's a lot of young up-and-coming talent in the National Football League. And I think that you interviewed 2 that are probably going to go on to have some huge success in Shieldhouse and Udinsky at some point. But if you remember, in 2019, when they hired Freddie Kitchens, they also interviewed Kevin Stefanski. He went on to continue to be the offensive coordinator in Minnesota. Then they brought him in the next year. So it's not crazy that maybe one of those guys could eventually end up here if this doesn't work out. But at this point, I don't want to speculate any further. I just want to talk about what we know and who we know Todd Monken to be. And I think that we kind of really have to shift. Things are going to look different than they did with Kevin, and probably a good thing. However, just a reminder to fans that if this isn't what you wanted, but you were pounding the table saying get rid of Kevin Stefanski, how clearly it is that maybe sometimes the grass isn't always greener. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what the coaching search is going to end up looking like. You mentioned 10 teams, right? And 2 of them, like Tomlin, Sean McDermott, look like they're probably going to take a year off. So their names aren't even being thrown around in coaching searches.
Right.
That could change. We'll see how that plays out. But, it's there are no guarantees. And I think it's probably I'm just very glad that I wasn't part of any of this decision-making process, because I'm sure it's very stressful. It's difficult. I think when you look at Todd Monken, one thing that's going to be different than Kevin Stefanski is you look at him, and this is not a shot at Kevin. I think Kevin's very smart, but you look at Todd and say, hey, that's a football guy. You know, that is somebody that has been in and around the game of football for a very long time. That's not enough in his age either. But he does strike somewhat of a balance between analytics and just football intuition and instinct. That intrigues me, and I think his press conferences are going to be wildly different, everybody, than what we saw with Kevin. So I do look forward to some leadership and accountability. He looks like and seems to be a guy that can do that. So I'm very eager.
Well, he's also a leader of men, right? So we know that he's a leader of men. I was talking offline with some people. Everybody knows where I work, and this is what they said: this isn't a bad hire, because he's been in the league for 20 some years. He's going to be able to build a good staff. Now think about that. If you're a 35-year-old guy that just got hired, right, and you're an offensive, well, how deep does your tree go of guys that you can call on? Hence, he immediately got a great guy as the offensive line coach. I think he's going to build a good staff because he's got a lot of connections in the National Football League, Allie, you know. And by the way, you're worried about his age? Schwartz is 59. Todd Monken's 59. They're exactly the same age. And to your point, everybody pounded the table. You know, Cleveland needs a football guy. Need a football guy. Well, you got a football guy, right? So you can't always ask for one thing. And it's like, it's just interesting to me. Like, I don't know. It's just, I always think we just are quick to judgment. And here's the thing: we aren't going to know till midway through this season in October or November if this looked like the right hire or the wrong hire, because we don't know. Like we, you know, I will say this: we will have a good grasp of what the staff is going to look like within a week, because I'm assuming he's going to be pretty aggressive. And Allie, we know this: when you go into these coaching searches, you know, that's part of it. You know what? The Browns have the number 1 to number 5 defense every year. You can't tell me you're not going to find a defensive coordinator that's not going to want to come in here and coach those guys. Absolutely, you're going to find a guy that's hungry to come in there and coach. And by the way, if it's a great young defensive-minded guy, great, I'm all for it. But I'm just saying the offense stunk. Let's just call it for what it is. You hired an offensive-minded guy that's been in this league for 20 years. Now, I'm going to add this. This is just a little wrinkle in it. It was very made well-known publicly that the Baltimore Ravens wanted Shedeur Sanders, but he didn't want to play behind Lamar Jackson for several years. Did Todd Monken see something in Shedeur Sanders that he thinks that he can ignite here? And oh, by the way, if he's right, we should all praise him for that he saw something in Shedeur that he could build talent around and have something here that we aren't flipping quarterbacks every other year.
Look, Dustin, you know, when Shedeur got his first start, I mean, you remember us saying, like, hey, we hope he is the guy, even though the Browns drafted 2 quarterbacks. I hope that one of them works out. Similarly, I hope Todd Monken works out. Whether or not you like the hire or whatever your thoughts on it are, at the end of the day, if you're watching this, you're more likely than not a Browns fan, and we are hoping for his success. That is it, kind of period, point blank. I'm hopeful that you know, this works in some form or fashion, that he meshes with Shedeur and we're able to roll out with Todd Monken, our new head coach, and, you know, a 5th-round pick in Shedeur Sanders, who comes at he's pretty cheap right now in terms of the salary cap. Let's make this work now. I'm very optimistic in that lens. So more to come on that. We'll talk about it first. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I just want to add to that, guys. If he didn't get the head coaching job for the Cleveland Browns, he's going to work for Harbaugh in a millisecond, and he's going to be part of that staff. So if you can't tell me this guy's not well respected, the reason he's not with the New York Giants because he got an opportunity to be a head coach in the National Football League, and I praise him for that, right? Like, this is a guy that he had the job given to him in New York. And if he's good enough for Harbaugh, I think he's good enough for the Cleveland Browns. So.
All right. With that, we are going to bring our new friend of the program, Isaiah Wooden, on. This interview is brought to you by our good friends over at Lorello Vineyards.
Here we go, Brownies Nations. We are here with Larry Lorello at Huntington Field to talk about Here We Go Brownies wine and all the other amazing wines at Lorella Vineyards.
Yeah, I just want to tell all of you guys, it's harvest season right now. We just started with some of the whites, and reds will be coming in next. Stop out at the winery, all the wineries out in Northeast Ohio, for to check out all the harvest and what we're doing out there. Really good time right now.
Here we go, brownies. Here we go.
Here we go.
Woof, woof.
Woof, woof.
All right, let's bring him on. Newest addition to the Cleveland Browns, Isaiah. Isaiah, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Well, Isaiah, first and foremost, thank you for giving us an exclusive and being your first interview in Cleveland and choosing us to talk to our audience tonight. There's already some great comments here. I know you're in a much warmer place. I'm jealous. Allie's in Florida. You're in California. You know, I'm not mad at you both, but it's cold here, so get ready, Isaiah. But we talked a little bit about this. I'll start. You went to Kent State. You had a moment here for a couple years at Kent State. Tell the fans. We'll start with, what do you think of the Cleveland area and how excited you are to start playing for the Cleveland Browns?
Oh, yeah. First and foremost, it's a blessing to actually get the opportunity to come back to Ohio and, be in Cleveland. I went to Kent State for 3 years. I loved Ohio. Ohio, it holds a special place in my heart. And just to be back there, I'm very excited, and I can't wait to get to work.
We're very excited and just very thrilled to be able to have the opportunity to talk to you and get your perspective on this. If you don't mind, kind of paint the picture for us. How did it come about that you were able to sign in Cleveland? I mean, walk us through that process.
Yeah, so basically, I went to the CFL. I went to the NFL out of college in 2024, and then, things didn't really go how they were supposed to go. So I went to the CFL, did a couple years out there. I had a breakout season this past season. So, that kind of opened eyes of a lot of GMs, a lot of, different NFL teams. And, my agent called me one day. Actually, he called me. I think I was going to work out with the Saints. And then he called me like, oh, we got to work out with the Cleveland Browns. Like, we got it next week. So be ready. And I was just excited. And I'm just like, I can't wait. Because this is always something that, I always wanted to play for the Browns since I went to Kent State. So, everything went to the workout, had a pretty good workout. And, everybody, they stayed in contact. And then when the time came, they were ready to sign. So, I was just ready and excited too.
Yeah. So, talk to us a little bit about that. Obviously, your skill set is, on special teams. Talk a little bit about that and what you think you can bring to the Cleveland Browns, in that special teams unit and what your dynamic speed is.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I've always been a special teams type of guy. I play wide receiver as well, but special teams has always been something that I've excelled in. And when I went to Canada, I was able to really show that to everybody. And that's just something that I know I could bring to the team. That type of the turnover the field. Get a good return, get about 20 to 30 yards. Be able to flip the field and have the offense start in good field position. That's always been something that I harp on, something that I really hold true and dear to me. I practice very hard at catching the ball, making sure that I'm seeing where my blocks are setting up, just so I can make the right decisions to get the team down to where they need to be at. And that's something that I could definitely bring to the Browns. And that's something that I am going to bring to the Browns. I'm very hard on myself, and I practice very, very hard on being consistent, and I know that's something that I could bring, and that'll be a good thing.
That'll definitely be something that I think a lot of fans will be excited to hear, myself included. That has been a struggle in the past for the Browns, is special teams. And I'll tell you this, Isaiah, and I'm sure you're already aware of this, but the Browns actually have kind of a reputation, if you will, for undrafted free agents and guys from the CFL coming and actually working out and having success. Just a year ago, you have Gage Larvadane. A couple of years ago, Ronnie Hickman, DeAnthony Bell. So there is a pattern here. And the other pattern is we actually have them all on our show. So
yeah.
Isaiah,
maybe this is some good luck charm we're throwing.
Oh yeah, I definitely believe it.
Listen, the Browns just brought in a new coach. There's a ton to talk about that. Of course, we don't know him, you don't know him, but I do want to ask you, in terms of all of the coaches you've ever had, when you think of the best coaches you've had, what are some qualities that they all seem to share?
I feel like the qualities they always seem to share is just hard work, instilling hard work and instilling consistency. and always that next play. You know, if you mess up or something happens in a game that doesn't go your way, it's just always the next play. Every coach that I've been with, they've always instilled that in me and my teammates. Just keep going. You know, things are, they're not always going to go your way in a game. We all know that the game is a long game. But if you could bounce back and just focus on the next play, you know, that's the best thing that you can do. You got to control what you can control. And, you know, I'm excited. I'm definitely excited. I've looked at, you know, his work and everything that he's done. And I'm just excited because I'm a guy that loves to learn, a guy that's just an open ear, a guy that's, you know, just very determined to be in the best situation that I can be in, and also put my teammates in the best situation that they can be in as well.
Have you? So obviously you're newly signed to Cleveland. You're going to be on the offensive side of the ball. Has any Browns players reached out to you, welcomed you to the team, other than obviously the staff and stuff like that signed you? Any? Do you have any relationships already with any of the players that on the Browns?
Not quite on the offensive side, but on the defensive side, actually I do. Aiden Huntington, I went to school with him at Kent State for some time. Man, Aiden the Shark, man, that's my guy. I've seen him, you know, when he first came into school, and you know everything that he's done ever since, and now he's, you know, in the league and he's doing big things, and that's somebody that I'm definitely proud of. And you know, I can't wait to get back on the field with him because he pushes you, he brings out another side of you, and it's all positive. It's all positive, and that's exactly what, you know, I feel the team needs, and that's a great thing. That's something that I'm also going to bring as well. So,
you know, it's funny you mentioned Aiden. You know, he was one of those, as the season kind of ended, they were like, everybody was like, yeah, you see how he played the last few weeks? He's got a roster spot. Like, I feel like you kind of bring that same kind of tenacity. Like, if you outwork everybody, you're going to find a spot, and you're going to give them a reason to, you know, to keep you on that 53-man roster.
yes, sir.
Yeah, that's really cool. You've got great energy. Really looking forward to watching you. There, do you have, you know, you've played professional, and you mentioned a breakout season last year. Do you have a moment professionally where you're like, man, I made it to the league? Like, holy crap, maybe a big hit or something like that, a big play that really just comes to mind. A memorable moment that's like, damn, I really made it.
Yeah, I'll say the first game of the season last year. You know, grinding through training camp, you know, doing all of that stuff and actually making the roster and making the team. That was something that I was definitely proud of. And going down there to Calgary, the first game of the season, and you know, running my first kick return back. Like in college, I was so close to running kick returns back, but I didn't run one back in college. So it's the fact that like my first kick return and my first career touchdown as a professional was my first game of the season. And that was like the moment right there that I'm like, oh yeah, like I finally made it. And then from there, it was just like, it's time to go, like level up each and every week.
Well, obviously, we appreciate you coming on. Like I said, we'll have to get together when you get here. I know you said you're going to come sometime in April, but you don't know because you haven't heard from your head coach yet when you show up yet. But now you're probably going to get a call, and you're going to know when you're supposed to show up in Cleveland. But best of luck to you. Obviously, we'll talk more. We're excited for you to come to Cleveland.
Well, dude, Allie, Dustin, thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to be a Cleveland Brown, and I can't wait.
Okay, here we go, Brownies. Here we go.
Thank you, Isaiah. Take care. Go Browns.
All right, you too.
All right, that is Isaiah Wooden Sr. Man, I love the energy. Dustin, we talked about having the opportunity to speak with, over the past couple of years, undrafted free agents that made a roster spot and had immediate success. Really cool that I know he's going to be added to that list. You can just tell by talking to him. He's got great energy. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can bring to the table.
Well, and I watched some of his tape. I mean, that kid's got speed, and that's, to your point, that is something that's been lacking on this team. And man, like he said, flip the field, right? Like that. I mean, if you can flip the field and change the direction of a football game, that could be huge for the Browns. You know, so I'm excited to see him out there and see what he's got.
Yeah, definitely. All right, what you've all been waiting for, talking about the head coach. Before we get into it, a couple of ad reads here. Guys, if you don't have Stadium Mustard in your kitchen this season, you are doing it wrong. The iconic brand, the iconic taste, beloved from ballparks to backyards and everywhere in between. Stadium Mustard is a smooth brown mustard rich in both taste and tradition. By the way, it is loved by millions. So be sure to head on over to stadiummustard.com to shop now. Now, if you are wondering what you should have for lunch or dinner, or maybe you need an event catered, give our friends over at City Barbecue a call. They have award-winning sauces, sides, meats. They do it right all the time. And Dustin, we know where you're at. Why don't you tell us?
Yeah, guys, we are at Primetime Sports, and by the way, guess who's coming this weekend? Jameis Winston. I'm very much looking forward to hanging out with Jameis Winston. What an individual! And then, of course, we have T.O. coming, and a lot of big time players that will be out here this weekend. So look on the Primetime Facebook page or Primetime Sports. Check them out to get your tickets for the event this weekend.
All right. And with that, we're going to bring on Dr. David Ellery to the program. Of course, Dr. David, nothing to talk about in terms of a medical perspective. So you're just going to be regular David tonight. We're going to talk about the head coaching search and result of Todd Monken. Hi, David. Thanks for joining.
Hi. Hello. Thanks for having me.
Hey, David, here we go. How do you keep a 59-year-old in great shape and young and coaching like a 35-year-old? There's a medicine.
Well, I don't know if coaching NFL football is the key with the amount of stress that it puts on the brain and the body. But yeah, I mean, staying active, working out with the team, eating like the team. I think that's pretty important, doing some weightlifting.
I actually said somebody today, they were talking about the stress of an NFL head coaching job. I said, with NIL and everything today, I think being a college head football coach is way more stressful now than being the head, because you have so much support staff at the NFL level. Like, man, I can't imagine being a college coach now.
David, yes. I apologize for just throwing you on tonight. Normally I give you a, this one's brought to you by our good friends over at, and tonight I said, no, you're just going to jump on. So apologies.
Jumping in.
We're prepared, but let's just talk about it. Let's kind of give honest reactions to the news. And again, want to keep this pretty high level. Obviously, we don't know a ton. We don't know what his staff is going to look like, but just kind of talking about the process, how it all worked out, and of course the result. David, we'll start with you.
It's a surprise, but it's not. I don't really know. I'm still processing it. Obviously, I mean, I was working all day, so we got to talk about it a little bit, but didn't have a ton of time to really dive into it, which is what we're doing now live on the air. But obviously, we knew it was kind of down to 3 guys, and I don't hate it. Last night, you and I were talking, and we kind of said, all right, down to brass tacks. Who's your guy? Who do you want? Who do you think they're going to hire? Who do you want? And my answer was, I think they're going to stick with Jim Schwartz, but I think I want Todd Monken. And then this morning I changed my mind. I was like, no, maybe I want Schilhaas. I don't know which way to go. But as I read about it more, as I learn more about him and just kind of get more familiar with it, just like you were saying earlier, Ali, I'm definitely optimistic. And you have to be. I mean, you want your team to win. You want success on the field. And, even though he's been with the organization, he's familiar with the division, my concern there was like, oh, is this just kind of rewriting or redoing what's been done? Like, the more I read about it, I don't think that's the case. The more I look into it and think about where he's been since the last time he was with the Browns, I'm excited about that. I mean, he's been under some fantastic coaches and learned a lot along the way, both in the college and professional level. And so I'm excited to see what he brings to the table and how he's going to change this offense and adapt to the players that are in it. I'm trying to be hopeful, and it is exciting. I know it's a shock, and it was a long, dreary process getting to this point. But now that it's finally done, we can start maybe finding some excitement in it and what can possibly happen.
Yeah. I mean, Dustin, give me your perspective on this, right? Like, we all kind of probably had in our heads in a perfect world, what this staff looks like. And maybe this hire is what you wanted, maybe it's not. But I want to talk, Dustin, your perspective on this process. This was drug on for a while. And I mean, you mentioned it. There was a lot of movement in the head coaching search, and that played a huge role. It did. But in terms of who they requested to interview versus who kind of the finalists were, I just want to get your perspective on what you thought of that process.
Yeah, I'll go back to Andrew Berry's presser where he said, and Jimmy Haslam after the firing, they said this will be wide and in a very extensive search process. Well, it was very extensive and it was very processed out. I think what the Browns were finding, and I'm assuming this, obviously, Schilhaas was one they had he's going to be an up-and-coming guy in the NFL. Maybe he ends up landing a job. We don't know. But obviously, he's done a great job with the Rams staff there. But I think what was happening is they already loved Schwartz. So I think he was a kind of a finalist already, right, before this process started. But they said, we're going to do our due diligence as a GM and do that. And I think they kept coming back to, and we heard it in the media, Todd Monken, don't sleep on Todd Monken. We kept hearing that, right? There was little subtle sayings like, don't sleep on Todd Monken. He's definitely still in play in this interview process. So like, I was shocked, but not really shocked at the end of the day that they kind of drug this out and did an extensive search. But I think with anything, like we all have jobs, you interview 20 people, you get down to 10, you got some people out here that you really liked, but by the way, you keep going through that process. And then you get down, well, these are still our top candidates at the end of the day, right? Based on who we think they can bring in staff-wise. So, again, like I talked about at the beginning of this podcast, pump the brakes. Let's see what he's going to build. Like I said, he's bringing in George Warhop, who's well-respected in the NFL as an offensive line coach. And what did the Browns tell us? We hear you. The offensive line and wide receivers need help. Well, they're already doing it, right? They're already hiring a well-respected offensive line. Okay, let's see who I don't want him calling plays. I'll just put that out there. I'd rather him find somebody so he can focus on head coach. So,
yeah, I don't know what this is going to look like. I'm kind of the next thing I want to talk about is, with our current personnel, the way this roster is currently built and looks like, what do we expect this offense to look like? So ponder that for a moment. But I want to talk about everybody is. There's a lot of speculation right now about Jim Schwartz. Technically, he's still under contract, but it doesn't look like he will be with the team. Obviously, probably quite disappointing to find out that you made it this far in the interview process to not get the job. I would consider that a loss, right? But I know a lot of people are like Jim Schwartz is the end all be all. I will say this. I want to give credit to Andrew Berry on building this defense. I think Jim Schwartz was a good coordinator that got the most out of these guys, but to think that nobody else can come in and do that, I think is wrong. I think that there's plenty of other candidates that can come in and get these guys coached up, ready to roll, similar scheme, and get the most out of them. I firmly believe that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't like Jim Schwartz. I do. I do like Jim Schwartz, and like I said, I consider this to be a loss if he is not with the team. But to think that there isn't anybody else out there in the world that can come in and do what he's done, if not better, I think is incorrect. So with that in mind, I want to shift things over to strictly what we anticipate this offense to look like. David, we know what Todd Monken likes to do, or previously what he's liked to do, and that is kind of the air raid style, which is distinctly different than the Shanahan-Kubiak scheme and what Kevin really wanted to do. So just given our current personnel, what this roster construct is, what do we think, what do we expect to see out of the offense this year?
Yeah, well, like I said, he's gotten a chance to learn under some pretty great minds and work with some pretty great offenses prior to coming here. I mean, he's learned a lot, I would imagine, from Kirby Smart with his time in Georgia, and then dealing with Stetson Bennett and finding ways to win with him, and then obviously with Lamar, you just have a luxury of riches. But I think for the personnel that the Browns have right now and what they're looking at, one thing that I'm excited about is I hope, and I think he's going to find a way to get the most out of who's on this roster. And I'm thinking really the rookies and, the tight ends. I mean, Harold Fannin Jr. and maybe, kind of seeing maybe a return with David Njoku, because he does like to go multiple tight end sets. He likes to establish the run. But then what I really like is there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of shifting parts. And so he can do a lot of pre-snap motion, which we didn't see a ton of under Kevin Stefanski. And he can kind of get the defense to declare what they're doing before the snap is made. And so that helps put the skill players who have, speed, can catch, can get open in space in the best position to succeed. And so, if he's able to kind of get, David Njoku in these positions where you can make a catch and get some tough yards, or get Harold Fannin Jr. out in the open and use his wheels a little bit, and then find a way to really engage with guys like, Isaiah Bond and Jerry Jeudy, and move them around, get them in cluster formations, and really adapt to the players. I think we're going to see a little bit more excitement than we ever used to. I mean, we know how dreary this offense has been, and it's been so predictable. And so I'm hoping that that's kind of what we're going to see is heavy tight end sets, but then finding ways to scheme open the guys who can make moves out in the open. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for, but I guess, we'll see.
I would consider, obviously, seeing what he did with Mark Andrews, using Harold Fannin Jr. in a similar way. He's going to get, 5+ rushing yards every single game. Their push. I think that's going to be Harold's job. I know we tried to do that a couple of years ago with Harrison Bryant. That obviously didn't work out, but I think it is going to look different than what we've seen. Dustin, your philosophy here on, or your, what you think is going to look like with his philosophy.
Yeah, I kind of want to agree with David. I mean, what he's done with Andrews and the tight ends and the way he's been able to be creative. Now, we know Shador is not Lamar Jackson, right? I mean, we're not going to kid ourselves here. But, man, if he can put some talent around him and scheme and get him open on some things like that, and Shador can get rid of the ball quicker, I think there might be some exciting stuff to really look at here with this team. And I don't know. I think we always are just so downtrodden. Like, this is like the worst thing. Like, I'm going to make a hot take right now in the middle of this podcast. The Browns have the easiest schedule next year. 60% of the teams in the National Football League every year going back for nearly a decade make the playoffs when they have the easiest schedule in the playoffs. I think the Browns very easily can make the playoffs this next year. They have the easiest schedule in the entire National Football League. Like, there's so much parity and so much turnaround. Like, I think, don't be surprised.
Yeah, hard to say. I mean, I don't want to make this into a show of bold predictions of what this can look like, because we don't even know what this guy's staff is going to be. So it's really tough to predict. So I just want to talk about what we do know. Took this from Brad Ward. He's over on Browns Film Breakdown. He posted a tweet today. Got it from Sharp Football and Super Sports, but just the percentages on what they do. Todd Monken, or the Ravens offense, but giving credit here to Todd Monken, ran motion 52% of the time, which was 17th in the National Football League. Play action 13% of the time, 13.6, which was 26th in the National Football League. So, I mean, just knowing what Shador is good at, will he be able to adapt his philosophy to the personnel? Obviously, we have to hope for that. Air yards per attempt, 8.1, 11th. Shotgun, 63% of the time. No huddle, 3.2% of the time. And then, when we're talking about EPA per play, tied for 11th. Success, 13th in the league. EPA per pass was 24th in the league. And then per rush, tied for first. Now, mind you, obviously you have Derrick Henry in Baltimore, but goes to show that maybe kind of lean into the run game a little bit more or differently. Maybe not more, but in a different way than what Kevin wanted to do, which I know Browns fans, that's what they want to see, right? We've got a pretty good back in Quinshawn, hoping he's available the early part of next season. We'll see what they do this offseason in the draft, free agency, and trades. But, what was the one thing we would always say is run the damn ball, Kevin. Maybe we'll see that in a different fashion where we can be a little bit more efficient offensively. That's what I'm hoping for, offensive efficiency. But how many times we talked about this so often is we want accountability and leadership and discipline on this team. We watch so many pre-snap penalties under Kevin Stefanski. How drastically will that change, if at all, with Todd Monken? That's one thing that I kind of have number one on my list, is because that's coaching, in my opinion. I know Kevin's not out there coaching these guys to commit that, but it's still the coach's responsibility, right? I think that is one tangible thing that we can hold on to that I think we can track probably throughout the first part of this upcoming season.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I can't say it enough. You give it 72 hours, 3 or 4 days to see who these offensive and defensive coordinators are, wide receivers coach. Let him build his staff. And here's the other thing. I know we all love Schwartz, and I will say this. It makes it harder, and, maybe I'll go back to your first comment about why this took so long, Allie, from a coach, like the search. When you tell a coach, oh, by the way, we want to maybe keep this guy, are you okay? And you can't bring your own staff in. I don't know. Like, that's tough for a coach to do that. I think I would want to bring in my own coaching staff. So I understand that Schwartz is upset, but can he not? I think he can't be shocked by this either, right? Because the Browns have literally probably said to a multiple second interview coaches and first interviews, would you be okay being paired with Schwartz? Okay, well, they probably were like, yeah, I'm in. Like right, he's got a top 5 defense. But again, you also handcuff your current head coach to build his own staff, which that's his job, is to build his staff.
Yeah, it's a really clunky situation, right? And it's really awkward. And I really, that was my biggest gripe about this process, was how involved Jim Schwartz was. And again, I like Jim Schwartz, but that involvement seemed semi-detrimental to some of these interviews. Now, I'm not part of these interviews to know, but it just seemed odd to me. We don't know what's true and what's not, but obviously it was reported that Jim Schwartz was quite vocal on his not returning to Cleveland, had some choice words. If that is true and the tantrum was had, maybe the Browns made the right decision in not choosing him to be the head coach, right? Maybe that is a blessing in disguise. I don't know, guys. I'm just trying to see this as optimistically as possible. None of us here have the answers. We're just trying to just tell you what we know. And I don't know, George, if this does change the culture. We don't really know anything. Todd Monken, he was with Cleveland before, but he's just really had a lot of experience as a coordinator. We don't know what this is going to look like from a head coaching perspective. I think at the end of the day, we are all hopeful that it just works in some capacity. And if he is not the long-term solution at head coach, that he's a good enough stepping stone, if you will, to get to that point, to lay the foundation of, hopefully, George, a winning culture. I know that's just what we all want. And it's been tough, and it's been awful, and it hasn't been fun to talk about. It hasn't been fun to podcast about. And frankly, everybody, it has not been fun to be a fan of the Cleveland Browns recently. It hasn't been. We are, I think, all in the same boat, hoping that this does work and can bring some joy and levity to our fandom and change some things. So I don't know. I'm curious now. I want to shift the conversation now that we know who the head coach is and what this is potentially going to look like from an offensive perspective this upcoming season. Now, what are we expecting to happen this offseason? Do we think, I kind of believe now, especially that Dante Moore has announced that he's returning to college, that this is a one quarterback draft in Fernando Mendoza. And I think there's probably some hidden gems, right? There's probably some guys that can start. It's just, when we're looking at first round grades, it's Fernando Mendoza. What does this draft look like with Todd Monken and what he wants to do? Are we really going to go tackle heavy, hopefully, wide receiver heavily, hopefully? Or are we talking about trading back? That's another conversation to have. So I'm curious now I think it starts with what this coaching staff construct looks like. I saw a comment here. I want to highlight it real quick. I think losing Schwartz is one thing. Losing Jason Tarver is another one. Dustin, you gave him your coach of the year in our Browns accolades. Losing Jason Tarver on the defensive side of the ball, that would be a pretty big loss. He is, when we talk about young up-and-coming coaches, he's going to be on some coaching searches or coaching interviews probably in the next couple of years. He is an incredible coach. Obviously, look at what the linebackers have done and how that's boosted this defense. That would be a loss.
Yeah. So, again, if you're Todd Monken, those guys are kind of out there, right? They're sitting out there. That's a way to build a staff. Do you elevate them and say, here's your chance to be the defensive coordinator? That was already looking that way. You just don't know, right? But we all know that it's better to keep a guy in the building than lose a guy in the building if there's that synergy among the players. Also, I think that can calm the waters a little bit too if you're Todd Monken and you retain some of these guys on the defensive side of the staff, right? I think that could probably qualm some of this, coming off the ledge kind of thing. But Larry also gives us a nice update there. Yes, LeBron James is back in Cleveland tonight, and we're down 30-24 and going into the second quarter. So, LeBron's in town too. There's nothing else going in Cleveland today. Cleveland's kind of a lot going on.
Actually, got to see LeBron just the other day. We were in Los Angeles, to a Lakers-Clippers game. A lot of fun. Got to see the Lakers, and it's obviously very disappointing that Evan Mobley's out right now. But with the NBA trade deadline upcoming, there's probably going to be some movement. Curious to see how the Cavs are, are active in that market.
You might, I don't know if you guys saw this news, but the Cavaliers are open to bringing back LeBron this summer. They're open to that. That made news today. So, like I said, I've said
they should be.
Yes, they should be. Yeah.
Well, I've said this. I said this, I think, last year on this podcast, Ali. I said the Cleveland Cavaliers will win 2 championships before the Cleveland Browns win the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
so.
I agree with you. All right, back to football. David, your kind of thoughts and ideas going into this offseason, what this could look like now that we know who our guy is?
Yeah. So one thing I want to say before we get into that, just kind of going back to George's comment earlier about culture change and shift and all that. What I will say is, like, you and I have talked about it recently, how ownership really plays such a big role in trickle-down effect, especially one that's so involved and feels like they have their hands in everything and that they don't let their coaches do anything. I guess one thing I'll say is, like, at least from some experience in just a fan of football and being growing up a Detroit Lions fan, is that coaches can change the culture. I mean, you saw it happen with Dan Campbell and the Lions. Leadership was always hated in Detroit for so long because of losing players. Barry Sanders retiring early, Calvin Johnson retiring early, and like just not having the right culture, having a losing mentality. And then you find the right guy, and it can change everything. And you see the Lions make it to the NFC Championship 2 years ago. So while ownership does play a big role in the front office and kind of the culture of an organization, coaches can change it if you find the right guy. Now, I'm not saying that is Todd Monken. But again, there can be a little bit of hope there, just in the sense that, like, it's happened in other organizations who have a similar kind of losing history. So, I mean, like I said, I'm not saying that's Todd Monken, but maybe. But so when it comes to, like, the off season and the draft approach and what we're looking at, I think it's very intriguing. I think you're exactly right there, Ellie. There are the quarterback prospects in this class are not like they're going to be next year. They're not like they were in years past. And so I kind of agree that I think, at least for now, the Browns are going to be out on getting a quarterback. I don't think that's the priority. And I think maybe Todd Monken sees this as a nice challenge, a nice opportunity to really build around a fresh quarterback still. I mean, Shador has only played started in 7 games. And so maybe it's 10. But so either way, however many it is, he's still very green and very moldable and can be shaped. And so I think, knowing who he is and kind of what his approach has been, he's going to want to build around him. So protect him, and doing that already with bringing in the offensive line coach who coached, Joe for a number of years, but then also finding weapons to add to that wide receiver core. And if we know anything, the Ravens are very, very strategic in their draft strategy. I mean, they had 11 picks last year. It was insane. And so, maybe, I don't know how involved Todd Monken was in that, but he may have taken something from that approach to the draft and really trading and moving pieces to stock up on value and find those diamonds in the rough and those guys in the 3rd, 4th round that are really going to make a difference in depth and kind of, find a way to make a difference on the team. So I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, if they trade back, if they find value in receivers other than Carnell Tate and can kind of trade back and find other pieces and have more draft picks to just kind of amplify the opportunity for good players. So I think that's kind of what I see. I definitely think, as you already alluded to, lineman and wide receiver is going to be a focus. And I'm excited to see if he brings any of that draft strategy with him from Baltimore.
I was happy to see on Twitter when the hire was announced from Adam Schefter, you had former and current Ravens players talking about how much they appreciate him. Marlon Humphrey being one of them. And I think that's a huge endorsement when somebody takes another job, especially in the division, and you have a current Raven that is endorsing him. That makes me feel a little bit better because, I mean, to be honest with all of you guys, when I got the news, I was like, oh boy, they hired Todd Monken. I'm not gonna lie to you, I had to kind of talk myself into this. This was not who I envisioned to be the head coach, but here we are, and we're all fans of the team, so we're hopeful. But David, I want to go back to your comment about Dan Campbell and how quickly he turned things around in Detroit. I mean, obviously, as a Lions fan and grew up, the Browns and Lions were always kind of parallel. They just always sucked and had bad ownership, bad leadership, and just nobody wants to go play or coach for these 2 teams. And then it quickly changed with Dan Campbell. Not saying Todd Monken is Dan Campbell, but I want to talk about what that shift was like as a fan and what you saw from the previous head coaches to Dan Campbell, what that looked like.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it goes towards, and again, we're not saying that's what Todd Monken is, but a lot of it goes towards what you said with Marlon Humphrey, kind of just speaking towards him as a person and like as a leader. There was, even though Dan Campbell came in talking about biting kneecaps off, there was a maturity that he brought to this team, but like a ferocity with it, like ferocity, ferociousness. He really just brought the fight, and he said, like, I mean, there was no messing around. I mean, day one, it was, nose to the ground and just really getting in there with the players, working out with the players, and just showing he is willing to go to war with them just as much as they're going to war on the field. And so it was this incredible energy that you've never seen before from a head coach in Detroit. When you got, we talked about Jim Caldwell, who was a great character person, a very good person, but didn't have the same energy. And then Jim Schwartz was head coach for 5 years in Detroit. And it was weird. I'm not saying Jim Schwartz is a bad guy, but as the head coach in Detroit, he's learned a lot since then. And there was some immaturity there. And just to see a guy come in and really embrace the city, embrace the team, and just he was in tears in his opening press conference talking about how much he is going to show that he loves this team, this organization. And it was refreshing. It was a breath of fresh air. And you just hope that opening press conferences for any coach that comes in is similar, just total buy-in. You want the man leading your team to just be buying in completely and just make a promise that he's going to give it his all. And that's I think you can expect that from anybody. And so knowing that former players or current players or former teammates are speaking so highly of him as he's left and gone to, like you said, an in-division rival, I'm encouraged by it. I'm really encouraged by it.
All right. A couple of things here real quick. I want to tell you, if you are looking to buy or sell a home and you need somebody that can really point you in the right direction, give our girl Crystal Johntonio a call. She's over at eXp Realty, 216-215-6663 or at johntonysales@gmail.com. She'll hook you up. She'll point you in the right direction, whether it's buying, selling, renting, investing. She is your go-to person. And Dustin, why don't you tell our listeners about our newest sponsor?
Yeah, the Original Steaks and Hoagies. Check them out at the multiple locations around here in the Cleveland area. The best cheesesteaks. They have some smash burgers. They have some great chicken sandwiches. I love them. But check them out. They do catering as well. Real quick, guys, I just want to get your perspective on this. Just a side question. The Mike McCarthy hiring. What do you think of that in Pittsburgh?
Well, I was going to get to that. However, I want to tell you quickly about our friends over at We Bleed Ohio Apparel. Guys, if you were looking for your official Here We Go Brownies podcast hat, t-shirt, sweatshirt, they can do it there. Or your baseball, football, or basketball designs, they will get you hooked up at We Bleed Ohio. Since we last spoke, the Steelers made a hire. It is Mike McCarthy, Pittsburgh native. David, you talk about crying in a press conference. He did that. Although, man, I am surprised. I did not think that that's what they were going to do. I don't like the hire. I like the hire because I don't think it's going to work out as a Browns fan. I'm excited for that. But, if I'm a Steelers fan, I'm just man, Chris Schul is available. You've got some, even, Kubiak, some guys that can come in and stabilize this. I don't know. I don't look at Mike McCarthy as the next Super Bowl winning. I don't look at him as the next Andy Reid. I don't think that he's that guy. I think it's weird. I wouldn't have wanted him as my coach at the Cleveland Browns. But I think he fits the culture. David, what do you think?
Yeah.
As I say, I'm going to go a little different. I think it's a good hire, not great. I'm going to go good. I think Aaron Rodgers comes back, and I think the Pittsburgh Steelers make the playoffs next year. I think, everybody's wanting these hot commodity young coaches like they're the answer. Well, I don't think he's Andy Reid, but I think he's going to put his heart and soul into it. He grew up there. He grew up a Pittsburgh fan, so he eats and lives and breathes Yinzer. So you ain't going to get a more Yinzer guy than Mike McCarthy. So I don't know. I honestly think crazy enough, it's going to work. I do think it's going to work.
If there's one thing that we love to do in this household, it is hate Mike McCarthy. It is just we have never been a fan of him, and just from who he is as a coach to just the way he presents himself. I agree with Allie. I'm glad that he's not the Browns coach. I don't know. He did okay in Dallas with some great pieces. I think we might see him really, turn around DK's career, not his career, turn around his stay in Pittsburgh, because I think he's gonna be able to kind of scheme him up and get him the ball and get him what's DK good at. He's a big guy, he makes hands catches, and he can get yards after the catch. And I think that's something that he's gonna be able to kind of open up for DK like he was in Seattle. But overall, going from Mike Tomlin to this, he's not a super rah guy, and he's just I don't know. I'm not It's okay. It's okay.
I don't think it puts them over the edge, right?
No, I don't
I think
either.
he the culture. I think he, Mike Tomlin laid the foundation of, and probably even going back. I wasn't watching Steelers football at that time. Not that I watch a ton of Steelers now, but obviously knowing that they're in the division, we've got to be, giving the Steelers respect. They have a winning culture, even when they don't have the best roster. They still figure it out, and I think that is a testament to their culture that groundwork was already laid. I think he comes in and fits that mold. I think he can have success. I'm not surprised if they do make the playoffs. I think that, but I don't think that he takes them over the top. I don't think he is, their long-term solution. I really don't. And that's not a knock on his age or anything like that. I just think he gives them a lot of what they already had, and that is good enough to make the playoffs, but that's it. They're not bad enough to get a top pick. They're kind of just like this middle ground team. And I know with Tomlin, that's what so many fans were pissed about is, man, we just live in this like kind of middle ground of, we're never going to get a top pick unless we trade some crazy assets. But we're also, making the playoffs, but we're getting bounced in the first round kind of thing. So I don't know. I think he's going to find some success. I just kind of was surprised by it. I didn't think that was the direction that they were going to go, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I don't know. Just Steelers have had 4 coaches in 60 years, 5 coaches in 60 years. Like, I just feel like he's going to be there till he's 70. I don't know. I don't think he'll be there till, but I mean, this will be more of a short-lived, this is clearly projecting a shorter run for a head coach there, but I could see him there 5-6 years. And then again, to your point, Allie, that's the thing.
Didn't you just say you think he's going to be there until he's 70?
Yes. I'm just saying.
What is it?
No, I mean, he's 62, right? 8 years, 5 or 8 years. So I think, he can be there for 5 to 8 years. All I'm saying is they don't change out coaches. That's that's what I'm saying. So it's going to shorten up their time frame, but I think he's going to be successful. I mean, I may be wrong, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm glad he's not the Browns coach. I'll say that. I think if I could have my pick and it's Mike McCarthy or Todd Monken, I'm glad that the Browns went with Todd Monken. And that's not me saying that as a Browns fan. Just that's who we got. No, actually, I think he's a better offensive mind and can probably get the most out of what the Browns have. Now, from a culture perspective, that remains to be seen. It does. I don't know. We know who Mike McCarthy is from a culture standpoint and what he can bring to the team. I think he fits well with what the Steelers want to do. But in terms of elevating this roster, I'd like taking the flyer here and seeing what we have in Todd Monken. But overall, this whole process was surprising, eye-opening, very Cleveland in a lot of ways, and I'm glad that it's finally over. This was exhausting. I mean, even last night when the news started to pick up that they were close to a decision, it's all I could think about. You're just checking your phone constantly, and I don't like to live in that world where it's like waiting to see what somebody's going to say. And I'm glad it's over. I'm very eager to see what this staff looks like. Optimistic to see how this fits the Browns, personnel, and just excited to kind of look forward to the draft here. So, guys, any closing thoughts here as we wrap up?
Just today, Dustin, we were so locked in last night that we were tracking Jets. So,
were you tracking Jets?
Oh yeah.
Well, I will give this. I guess we can punt our. By the way, everybody, Allie and I are now. Well, we're not. Are we tied now? No. We got to figure out a way for the Super Bowl because I can tie, but we got to do a tiebreaker, and I have an idea.
No. It's you win or you lose. I mean, I'm not doing a tiebreaker. I didn't win all those games, all those weeks, just the tie.
Hear me out. Well, we don't want to end in a tie. I mean, that's that nobody.
Yeah, I did my job. I got to.
Okay. Let me ask this on air. So, if depending on what the Super Bowl is, right? Like you could pick a team, or I could pick a team. Maybe I'll take the opposite one. I'll give you first shot, whoever you want to take in the Super Bowl. And then the tiebreaker is who we can make it the score of the game is all I'm saying. Like who could win. It'd be all for everything. That's just my.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll come up with something. We don't need to do it right now. We'll see where we stand. But All right. Anything else? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah,
On the
46-43 Lakers. 4 minutes into the second before halftime. So Cavs are making this a one-possession game. So good game, 46-43.
Okay, I'll ask again. Any closing thoughts on the coaching search as we wrap up on a beautiful Wednesday evening?
I'm excited that it's over. I'm excited to see where the staff goes, and now it is officially almost draft season. So
Yes. Can't wait. Looking forward to it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, Browns fans, go Browns.
Go Browns.
SOS, I could use a